getting nervous.
Ali and Nancy.
How is it?
It's a little sweet. That's why I just can't eat sweet thing. And it drives me nuts because that's my favorite thing. But like,
You need the carbonation. Is that what's helping you?
I think the carbonation helps because it makes it feel refreshing. But I don't want it flavored because when it's flavored, like this is probably a little bit too sweet. I won't drink this.
You can get some of the LaCroix or whatever it's called.
Yeah, which is funny because I usually not a fan.
I don't like it either. It's
Yeah.
bitter.
Yeah,
Well,
it's
that's
really
why I
bitter.
started drinking this. It's not fizzy though. It's just water, like when you drink it, but then there's like a fruit aftertaste.
Mm.
So it makes it less less difficult to just drink water.
Hello, Alpha Awu.
Are we live?
We are live.
Is my mic working?
Yes, it
wait.
is.
There we are.
Or are they listening to our stories about
It's a little sweet.
water?
Yep.
That's
Yes,
all
they
right.
are.
What works then?
Hello.
Who is here?
Leslie from Buda, Texas. That's a great sounding place.
Hello, Leslie. Is it Leslie or Leslie?
Ooh. I think I say Leslie, but I think Leslie is correct.
I wonder, because I know that Leslie can also be a boy's name.
That's true. I know a male Leslie. But
We don't know.
but then like Leslie Nope. Right?
Who's hilarious.
Oh yeah. From
So it's
Parks
not
and Rec.
pronounced Leslie.
Yeah.
We got all kinds of people chiming in
I
from
want to
different
be
states.
like her when I grow up.
I think
Welcome
everybody
all.
wants to be. How can you not want to be like her?
Leslie Nope.
Yeah. She's so hardworking though. Like I see her and I go, I'm tired watching you. And it's a show.
Yeah. She's in literally just forgot the name of the show.
There you go.
Parks and Rec.
Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
Perfect.
Yeah. Heidi just said it.
Oh, you did?
It's okay.
Yeah.
Just listen more.
I was
It's okay.
getting distracted by all the states.
Did you know that
Oh.
Rob Lowe was only supposed to be in the first like 2 or 3 episodes? and
That
then
would have
he
been a
did-
mistake.
He was so good in it that then he ended up being in it like the whole
Really?
time.
That
I
would
heard
have been a
the
mistake.
same thing of Toby. Toby
The
from The
Office?
Office.
Flenderson?
He's
Yeah,
so
he was
good.
only supposed to be in the pilot, but then I guess somebody high up of the network was
we
like,
love.
who's that guy? Because I like him. And then they kept him.
Well, and then he was one of the writers too. I don't know if he was from the beginning, but then he was,
Really?
Yeah, he was one of the writers.
Then maybe the story I just said wasn't true.
I don't know.
Or maybe he was always a
Maybe
writer.
he
and just
was the
looking to be a
higher up who
person.
was like, I should stay.
He was the one that
He
was
did
like,
it.
who's that guy right there? I like him.
Well, like the guy who plays Mose, also one of the writers.
Yeah.
He is?
Yeah, Michael Skur, I think is his. I don't know if I'm pronouncing it
Skur?
right, but yeah.
So it's 7:16.
Oh, we gotta. Hello, everybody. I know all of you guys are saying hi and chiming in where you're from. You guys are amazing. Thank you for being here. And I'm sorry that we didn't start the live earlier. Keenan, that's your fault. Can you be better?
Yes, I can.
Thank
I am
you.
so sorry that I have not been better.
So I'm Sarah Cray. We do paint-alongs every single week. And this is what we're painting tonight, our Daisy Delight project.
Ooh,
In the house, we have Keenan, of course, who's doing our camera stuff. That's the
Yes,
voice you
That
hear.
is me. I'm in the background.
I do fire him on a regular basis. It's fine.
It is. I haven't been paid since March.
Yet he still comes.
That's how much fun it is.
I
I'm here
have
once a
great time.
week. The rest of the time, I don't know what I'm doing. You decide.
And we have Heidi here with us.
Hello.
Heidi also works for Let's Make Art. She does marketing. She's amazing. She does a lot
She does a
many
lot of
things.
stuff.
She helps us go.
We all do a lot.
I probably do the most. No, I'm just kidding. I'm just not true.
that's
Not
so
true.
funny.
You do a lot.
Okay.
You
We do a lot.
All right. Sorry about that. So for our Daisy Delight project that we have going on here, these are the colors that you will need. You will need berry blue, which is like a purpley blue, okay? A cool blue, as I like to say.
Cool.
We're using magenta, which is like kind of like a hot pink, but undertones of purple a little bit. We have leaf green, which is a warm green, and we have deep yellow. You might notice some separation in your deep yellow. Don't fret, my friends. Even if you shake it up and it doesn't mix in, the paint will still work just fine. So those are the 4 colors. Essentially, you just need yellow, green, pink, and like a bluish purple. Okay? And we are doing 5 steps in this project. So our very first step is we're going to roughly draw our flowers. And I know that might seem really scary for people who are not comfortable drawing, but I will break it down for you. You can do this. I will show you how you can do it. And it's only 3 flowers.
Okay, I believe you.
Okay,
I'm
okay.
trying to believe you.
And then step 2, we're going to put in the background, which is we're painting essentially everything except our main 3 flowers. And then we will go in and paint our flowers by putting in our yellow centers and a little bit of shadow on those white petals. Number 4, we're going to do the green leaves. So a lot of it is we're going to be doing a second layer, because when we're blending for our background, things are going to get messy and lost. So we're going to put those back in. And then finishing details. So just steps 1 through 5, that's it. Not a big deal. Okay? Great. Oh, Debbie says, love your style and instruction. I've learned so much. Debbie, you're so great. Thank you. Debbie. Debbie, you're the best. Okay. We're using 2 paintbrushes today, a round 6 and a round 2. These are our go-to brushes. We love them. They're our friends. You can name them if you want. I haven't named mine since I got a new pair.
It's okay.
It's a sensitive topic for me.
It is. It's fine.
We're also going to use blue painter's tape for this project simply because we're doing a background and putting a lot of water and paint. This paper tends to curl when it has a lot of water or paint on it. This is Canson cold press 140-pound paper. So I just like to tape the edges down so then it's easier to paint on when it wants to curl. So that's that. Keenan, are we on YouTube?
Yes, we are. I'm watching it right now.
Oh, Susan said she can't find us.
YouTube's a tricky beast.
I'm not familiar with it, if I'm being honest. I don't know how to
So-
search for live videos.
If you go to our YouTube channel and go to videos, it should show. This time for me, it was snuck in the other videos. So you kind of have to look for it. It says live now in the bottom left corner of the thumbnail.
Okay. Susan, good luck. Can you post a link in the comments on the Facebook?
Yes, I can.
Let's see if you can do that. All right. So we're going to start with our oath before we do our warm-up. So if you can raise your right hand, or your left, because you're left-handed, sorry.
It's okay. I'll conform. That's fine.
I just realized that's so biased to people who have... Does it have to be your right hand?
Isn't it
I
about?
don't know.
Isn't it about putting your you put your right hand on your heart, like when you're.
Saying the
who
Pledge
made
of
this
Allegiance? But I'm just wondering if
Your
the
heart
right
is on
hand
this
is
side
what?
of your chest, right?
So
you
which
go
hand is
across.
closer to the heart?
Wait, we have a question. What's the it has nothing to do with hands. What's the difference with cold press and hot press watercolor paper? Great questions, Shannon. I hope I'm saying that right. Cold press paper, it's how they're made. Cold press paper has a texture to it. There's a rough surface to it. Hot press paper is totally smooth. But they act differently when you paint on them. I've noticed with hot press paper, it's really hard to blend out once you put an initial paint stroke down. Like, it usually stays there. Even when you try and blend out, you can still see that initial paint stroke. So I think that there is different ways that you can work with hot press paper that I'm simply not familiar with. You probably would want to wet the entire thing first and then paint on that, I would assume, but I don't know because I'm not familiar with it. Cold press will have a rougher texture and that you can blend out. It's pretty workable. It's a little bit easier and beginner friendly. So if you're not sure which to use when you're first starting, start with cold press. Okay.
Lori says, tell Susan to subscribe on YouTube, then just click on Let's Make Art in your list of subscriptions, and the live will show up right away if you guys are on the air. Pro tip, we are not subscribed to ourselves. That may be why it's hard for me to
we're
find
not
us.
biased.
You can't be subscribed to your own channel.
I wish you could. That'd be great. You just posted a great video.
Rita asked about when we're going to do the Golden Retriever live schedule. Rita, I think we're going to do that the very last week in September. I think there's 5 Tuesdays in September. I was looking because I'm like, I got to do this for Rita. And I'm pretty sure that's when we'll do it. So I'll check and make sure my dates were right. But that's what I'm looking at. Okay, Rita? Okay. Okay. That was a lot. Let's focus. Let's do our oath. Raise whatever hand you feel comfortable using. I don't think it matters. Okay. And repeat after me. I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise to be kind to myself.
I promise not to compare my work.
I promise not to compare my work.
And I promise to have fun.
And I promise to have fun.
And I love doing that because I know what it's like to sit down at an empty piece of paper, especially if you're not used to painting or drawing a lot. It's intimidating, and you're always looking at your neighbor like, well, as long as I'm better than that person, I'm going to do fine. And that is not the way to approach art, my friends. We're not here to compare. It takes all the joy out of it. I had a lot of trouble doing that when I was younger because I'm very competitive, but I'm better now. Okay, we're going to do our warm-ups. Oh, people are explaining about the right hand. Great.
Yeah.
Oh.
Little pledge and then an oath. And
Something about, oh, Lord, this is interesting, so I'm going to say it. Lord says, it is the right hand. In earlier times, a criminal was branded with a letter on his or her finger, M, murder, T, thief, etc. So when they went to court and they held up their hand, it was known if they had past crimes.
What?
That is so interesting.
Okay.
Lori, thank you.
that is
All the
nice.
things you learn.
Wow.
Okay, so I'm going to put my paint on my palette. Now, when I put paint on my butcher tray palettes, I always put it on the edges. The top is convex, or convex sticks out, right? So convex, which means if you put it in the middle a lot, it will bleed to the side. So what I like to do is I like to put them along the edge. That's about how much I'll do when I'm sharing with someone. If it's just me by myself, I usually do about that much and then add as I go. But because me and Heidi will be sharing from this palette, I'm going to do a little bit more. And then you can use all the space around it to blend and mix and everything, which is why I like these butcher tray palettes. They're a lot easier for me to use than like the ones that have little cubbies.
Clara wants to know what pound means for watercolor paper.
It's the weight of it. I think it's like the thickness of it.
That makes sense.
But there is something to know, which is even though this is 140-pound paper, it is not 100% cotton. If you get another brand of watercolor paper that is 100% cotton and 140-pound paper, it will be thicker. Okay? A little bit about this paper. Okay. So for our warm-ups, what I want you guys to do, we're going to practice, is we're just going to practice making. We'll do leaves, and then we're going to practice just blending out, because that's a lot of what this background is we're putting shapes in and then just blending them out with water. So when I do leaves, I'm going to grab my round 6, I get my brush wet, I'm going to pick up paint. And when I do leaves, I like to do my top one first, so then I know like how high it will go. I can kind of control that. And then I do a stem, which is a thin line. I try and keep mine thin. So I'm going to do more of a vertical hold with my round brush to get a thin line, light pressure. Okay. And then I do leaves off of that stem. Now for your leaves, I try and make mine pointy at the top and at the bottom, excuse me. So when they're coming off of my stem, I want that to be narrow, and also when they go up, I want that to be narrow. Sometimes if you're not used to making leaves, you might do something like this, which isn't bad. There are a ton of different leaves in different shapes, so I'm sure there's a leaf somewhere that looks like that. But I remember teaching one time and they were frustrated because their leaves looked like pickles. And so to solve that, all you have to do is just narrow up the top. So if this is my leaf right here and it's kind of pickly, I'll just go in and bring it to a point. Okay, and then it would help if the bottom was also brought to a point coming off of the stem. So, and you can make them symmetrical, which means the leaves mirror each other, or asymmetrical, which means they do not mirror each other. Carrie needs to know what colors we are using. Berry blue, leaf green, deep yellow, and magenta. 4 colors. Okay, and then I'm just gonna rinse my brush, and then I hit it off the side of my cup, and I'll put that here so you guys can see. This is what it looks like when I rinse. Hit it off the side of the cup means I'm actually hitting the bristles off the side of my cup to get rid of the excess water. And now what I'm gonna do is I'm basically just going to take the color that I use from the leaves and start spreading it out. So we're just trying to fill, like, just spread the green around. Now you can see that some of the leaves were still really wet. The ones that were really wet that I'm spreading, I'm essentially losing that leaf shape, okay? There are some that are more dry that when I go to spread out, it does not lose its shape completely. You can still see that there, which is great for you guys to know, because you'll then notice that, like, if your leaf is still super, super wet and you add water to it and start to spread, it's more likely to lose its shape entirely. If you let it dry for a second and then add some water to it, it does not lose its shape as easy.
So for the pounds of paper, got some interesting facts over here.
Yeah, oh great, more information.
The pound means how much rag content per so much pulp wood.
Oh.
The higher the rag content, the stronger it is.
Okay. Good to know, thank you.
Interesting, that's all from Patricia.
Patricia, you're a doll. Thank you for sharing that information. Now, if you want to make your green like a darker green, which sometimes I do to want to make it nice and strong, you can add a little bit of berry blue. And now I have this nice dark green, which is great because we're going to go back in, we're going to let this dry, like in our actual painting, and we're probably going to want to redefine some of those shapes, our leaves and stuff like that. And so it's kind of nice to have a darker green so it will actually show up, right? Because if we used the same light green, it might not show up as much. See how that kind of doesn't blend? But you can see that it's bleeding here, and that's because it was wet underneath. So when we go in and do like our second layer of leaves, we want to make sure that the under part is dry. Okay, so the next thing I want to just show you guys too is when we're blending and adding color, because green and magenta are complementary colors, if you blend from green right into the magenta, you're going to get a muddy area. Like that, see how they mix, they make brown. So what I did here is I used yellow as a way to mediate between the two. Does that make sense? So instead of going straight from green to like this pinkish purple, I would do green here, and then I grab a little bit of yellow, and then grab a little bit of pink, and then grab that pink purple. So the transitions won't be muddy when they overlap. If you do put green right next to purple, that's okay, or even yellow right next to purple, that's okay. You just want to be careful and not blend them together too much, or else you will get a muddy color. So I kind of have some like hard lines where I just stopped and didn't let those mix and blend together because I did not want brown. Okay? Okay. The next thing that we are going to practice is actually drawing our flowers. So grab your pencil. If you have one handy. And then for my flowers, it's super helpful if you think of the general shape you want your flowers to be, and then go from there. So for me, if you want more of like a daisy, like a black-eyed Susan, here's my flower center, okay, which is just like a bump. And then you got to think, okay, the shape I want is kind of like a skirt. So there's,
That does look like a UFO.
or a UFO, yes. Deborah said on another video you did, you drew in the flowers and leaves first before painting. On this video, I will be doing the drawing in the flowers and leaves first. This is just warm-ups. So when we move on to our actual painting, I will be drawing and sketching first. Okay, now once you have the shape that you want, then you can go in and put in the petals. Now, petals are similar to leaves in the way that they kind of narrow in at the top and the bottoms, but maybe not as sharp as the leaves. And if you got to go outside your little UFO a little bit, like let's say you draw your UFO and then you did all the petals and you're like, man, it would just be nicer if there's one more at the top, do it.
What's the reason we use the rough side of the paper?
As opposed to the smooth side on the back. I feel like the paint holds better on the rough side, but I have accidentally painted on the back before and it really wasn't a big deal.
Okay.
I think on different papers it makes a huge
matters.
difference. On this Canson one, it's not a huge difference. Like it's fine. And then if we're going to do another flower that we want it to seem like, if we want a flower straight on, as if we're looking at it totally flat, it's laying flat and we're looking at it straight on, that would be more of a perfect circle, okay? So that would be the shape we want. You would put the center in the middle and then you would do the petals. If you want one that's turning away, this circle then becomes more of an oval because it starts to tilt. So if we're doing one that's angled away from us, this is more the shape that we have here. This is where the center would go. So it's kind of like a donut, an angled donut, you know what I mean? And then you can put in your petals. Now you'll notice that the ones on the bottom, the petals on the bottom are going to be shorter. That's okay. That's called foreshortening, and that's actually how we would see it. If the flower was turning away from us, the petals would be shorter on the bottom. I talk about that a little bit more in the sunflower tutorial, actually, if you want to go into that in detail. So kind of just play with sketching those different angles, putting in your centers. And sometimes what I like to do, if I want the petals to seem maybe more full and layered, like in this middle flower here, is after I do my little angled donut thing, I kind of just go in and just put in the crevices where there's space between the petals. So I'm not going in and defining them as much. It's more like that. And it gives it kind of a more full look, and we'll go in and put shadow there, which will give it a little bit of depth. But that's another way to do it.
So it doesn't have to go completely to a point at the end when it's that.
It doesn't have to go completely to a point.
Okay.
And this one, you can see that there's almost 3 different styles going on here. This one's more like that black-eyed Susan. This one seems really full, and you can see that the petals actually curve this way out, where this one, they kind of curve more that way. Do you see that? So they go up, and these ones go out. So just play with it. There's a bunch of different things, and there's also a ton of different kinds of flowers. So you can use this trick for, like when we do hydrangeas in September, we will be using this same trick, which is essentially they're balls, and then you go in and you just put in a bunch of tiny little flowers on top of each other, and that's how you do it. Okay. This is dry enough now that I just want you guys to see the wet on dry technique. So I'm gonna go in and grab my dark green. And you don't even have to fully paint it in. You can even just outline if you want and kind of give it like a sketchiness quality to it. And you can see that if it's dry, it shouldn't bleed. it should stay fairly sharp. Like that. So that's kind of the techniques that we will be using. Yeah, very nice. Beautiful. Okay, let's go. Let's do this. Okay, I'm gonna put my scratch paper to the side. I'm gonna grab my tape. Keenan, is that centered good on the top before I tape it? I'm gonna move it a little bit. Okay. So I'm just using blue painter's tape. There is painter's tape that isn't blue, because sometimes, I don't worry about this too much, just the work I do, but if you're like worried about color composition, sometimes having blue tape can be distracting to your color composition because it's such a strong color. So they do have like white and cream or whatever masking tapes, so it doesn't throw your eye off. But for me, that's not a huge issue for me. It just depends on what you're doing, what you're trying to accomplish. Okay, I'm gonna give that to you. Okay, now after I tape this down, I'm gonna start, is that too high?
I don't think so.
I don't know, I feel like it's coming off the top.
Do you want to see it?
Yeah, I'm seeing it on my phone. Oh, well, I guess that's okay. All right. So now I'm gonna sketch in my flowers before I start painting. And the reason why we're sketching at first is because we're gonna paint around our flowers, and that's how we actually define the flowers. It's called negative space painting. It's when you paint around the subject in order to define the subject.
It's also a superpower, so.
Is it?
No.
Okay. I don't know.
You
I
should've
don't
just
watch
rolled
Marvel
with it.
movies.
You
I don't.
should've just rolled with it. Yes.
Okay, so I know that when I taught the tutorial, I made the flowers a little bit small, so I'm going to challenge myself to make them fairly big. So I'm going to start with my UFO shaped one here, kind of on the left-hand side, middle-ish. Okay, there's my center. Here's my UFO. Yep, and then now I'm going to put in my petals. Okay, so there's my big one, and then I'm just going to sketch the stem and the leaves coming off it. And these leaves here, I will also avoid them when painting. So the leaves that come off of my daisies, I'm not painting, but the leaves that are around them, I paint in. Okay, and then I'm going to start with my second one, which is going to be kind of more oval. And that one is more in the top, a little bit more on the left-hand side. Put my center in. And then this one I have angled this way. So when I do my petals, that's the shape I'm kind of going for a little bit. You can't do it all the way across because this is a round object. But we want to make it feel that they're going out. Okay, then I'm going to put in my stem. Do I need to draw darker, or can they see that fairly well?
I think they can see it fairly well.
Okay, just let me know if I need to draw darker so you guys can see what I'm doing. The reason why I'm not drawing too dark is because watercolor is transparent, so you will see the pencil lines through, which honestly never bothered me anyway as an artist. So, but if it bothers you, draw lightly. And then my third flower, height-wise, I'm going to kind of put it in between the two I've already put it in, because if we were to do another one that's the same exact height, we would be making a horizontal, what's that word? Gosh, it's not indirect. It's, it will come to me, or somebody will comment it.
Marie says draw darker.
Draw darker? Okay. Somebody, Christina asked if we can straighten up the angle. If we switch it to overhead, Christina, it just won't be as close. So the close-ups have to be at an angle.
There's too much.
There are too many heads in the way for a straight-on opposite side angle. Implied line, question mark?
Implied line.
That's our main village man, Adam.
Adam, thank you. Yes, if I did some flowers here that were all the same height and flowers here that were all same height, we would have horizontal implied lines across our painting, which can be distracting. I'm not saying it's bad. I'm not saying that a painting, if it has that, it's a failure. That's not true. But those are just things you gotta watch out for.
Amy came in with some daisy trivia.
I love it.
She said, Keenan, daisy trivia. Daisies are actually 2 blooms in one. The yellow florets and the petals.
What?
Are the yellow florets the center?
I'm assuming yes.
Do you know daisies were the flower at my wedding? Those were my wedding
I
flowers.
did not know that.
I don't know
That's
how you
awesome.
would. I don't
I
know how
don't
anyone
know.
would
Why
know that.
didn't you know that?
Keenan, why don't you know about the flowers at my wedding?
Remember how I said I was going to be better? I lied.
We had yellow and white. Those were our colors. Yellow and white and silver. That was 10 years ago.
Wow.
I know. I would like to say that once I did yellow and white in my weddings, I saw it a lot. I'm not saying I started something, but I'm just saying.
It's something you've
Wasn't a
noticed
huge
has
wedding
become a really
color,
big deal.
and then all of a sudden yellow and gray everywhere, and I'm like, what the heck? No, I'm just kidding. Okay, sorry, my third flower. So it's gonna be the height in between these two, and I want it facing this way because these two are facing to the left. And again, this is another implied line. The direction of your flowers is going to tell your viewer where to look. If I have another flower pointing that way, my eye is automatically going to go like this off of the paper, which isn't bad. But just know that by the lines in your composition, you can direct the eye of the viewer. So I want one to be facing to the right, so then they know that they go here, but then they also need to look on the right side of my painting, okay? So I'm going to do my little circle donut. Here's my center that pops out. And then this one I'm going to have the direction of going angling up. So that one is going to be a little bit more like this. So those flowers kind of flare up, the petals I mean.
So flaring.
Yes. So the curved line is this way as opposed to this one which went down.
Okay.
Trish, that was also her wedding flower too, also 10 years ago. That's so great. Erin, her wedding flowers were also daisies. Her DJ name was Daisy, and her daughter is named Daisy.
No!
She won. That's
the
This is
trifecta.
her project.
I was going to say we had Wendy and Janet both had daisies for their weddings.
That's
and
so great.
one of their weddings was 45 years ago, and the other was 49.
Oh,
That is awesome.
we did daisies because I was 19 when I got married, and we were poor.
Poor.
And they are a very inexpensive flower.
Inexpensive. Yeah.
They worked great. It was wonderful.
Yeah, because they're adorable and they're bright in color.
I had daisies in my hair.
They're very happy.
They are. They're a happy little.
Also, Adam says, did you know that Daisy Duke got her name from the shorts and not the other way around?
Really?
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I just always assumed that the shorts were called Daisy Dukes, but I didn't know why.
I never researched it.
No idea.
Look at all that we're learning.
So many things.
So much more than art.
Okay, so there are my 3 main flowers. Heidi, those look great.
Thank you. I'm mirror imaging you because
Yeah,
I'm a lefty.
No, that's great. And also you can use your eraser after you sketch them and kind of erase to just soften the lines. I'm going to make mine dark so you guys can see what I'm doing, but if you're at home. That's what I would suggest to do. And then now what I'm going to do is just kind of put in the different leaves that are kind of coming throughout. So kind of in between these two, I have just some leaves coming out this way, just a stem. And again, it's just a rough sketch. It's not a huge deal. Kind of coming out of the middle, I have this kind of almost like lupin looking flower. It's not exactly lupin. It's not lilac. It's just a flower. It's fine. So how I did that one is I just kind of did jelly beans that got smaller as I got to the top. Yeah.
Angled off to the side.
Yeah, it's kind of angled off, going kind of across. Oh. Sharon said, we had daisies all up the steps of the church on our wedding day 23 years ago because they were growing wild in a field and the farmer said we can have them. That's so pretty. Wild daisies. I got married before it was the trend of having a flower crown, and I regret every day not having a flower crown because I just feel like I would rock a flower crown, you know? Especially a daisy one. Are you kidding?
Getting married before Pinterest, too.
You know
is a
what?
thing.
Getting married before Pinterest was hard. I want to go back because it's like you have all of the ideas right there in front of you. All the do-it-yourself.
All of it. I'm sorry I brought that up.
I have strong feelings about that.
I use Pinterest for like clothing ideas.
Do you? Do you actually use Pinterest?
I used to, but not a long time. Not in a while. I used to.
Okay.
Because now I just wear t-shirts and shorts because it's hot.
I'm not going to ask what you wore before because those are just normal clothes.
Fancy clothes.
Okay.
Like pants.
Pants. It's good. It's good.
Okay, let's go. Here's our sketch. I would again like to say that you have every single right to change this as you paint. You don't have to do exactly what I'm doing. Do not be afraid to try something and make it yours. This is your painting, okay? So you guys got this. So what I'm going to start doing, so our main subject are these three flowers. So we're moving on to step 2 where we're putting in our background. So we're essentially going to put in everything and leave these 3 flowers and their leaves and stems white. So to start, I'm actually going to paint my leaves that are not on my daisies, kind of like how we did in our warm-up, okay? So I'm using my round 6. I got it damp. I'm picking up some paint and putting the leaves on.
I see what you're doing there.
And I grabbed a little bit of this dark green because I just like it.
It's a good choice.
It's a great color. So I'm kind of running into my daisy here. I'm just painting around it. That. Oh, there's a little guy down here that I forgot to draw in, but I'll just put him in now. So we're essentially, the parts that we sketched in that are not our daisies, that's what we're painting right now. And then we'll start blending out and filling out the background with just washes. Oh, it's such a good color.
Oops, just put my hand in it, but
Oh,
that's okay.
sorry.
That's okay, we're gonna blend.
We will blend it out. This is one of those where if you smear, not a big deal.
Yay.
It's all smearing.
That kind of project.
Okay. Then I have some over here.
Someone's had a problem with their sub boxes. Can I read the comment?
They're having a problem with their sub boxes. Is it a good problem?
It's a, not really, it's a mix. I can read it.
Okay.
Slogan 413. I have to find out what happened to my sub boxes. I haven't gotten the last 2 months. My daughters fight over which ones they are going to do with me.
Uh-oh.
So you can email us at hello@letsmakeart.com to have us investigate that. We can look that up by your name, order number, all that stuff. So
Yes.
we have a great customer service team.
Our customer service team is the best.
They're the best.
They're so great. They want to help you.
Yes.
They literally want to help you.
So you can call us or email us.
Call or email hello@letsmakeart.com.
Big fans of helping.
I don't know our phone number. It's on our website, I'm
I
sure.
don't either.
And if you guys are using our paint, I'm noticing that my paint is having a little bit of texture here, and that is because I'm not mixing enough water into it, because these are concentrated paints. So that's why. That was my bad. But we're gonna blend all of this out anyway, so don't care. Not a big deal. Okay, now for like our purpley flowers, I'm gonna grab a little bit of magenta and a little bit of berry blue and mix those together, and you are gonna get this gorgeous color.
Slogan 413, that is correct. Over and out.
Good luck. We'll help you. We'll get to the bottom of this, and we will get you your sub boxes. Has she been charged for them? Because that's not good. We'll find out. Our customer service team will find out. Okay, so I'm just going in with these purple little flowers there. And then another thing I did to kind of help my blending is like, if I want to introduce a little bit of purple down here, which I do, like on the bottom left, I guess Heidi, for you that'd be the bottom right. I kind of just make those same, like, they're just brush marks that are kind of roundish, kind of similar to this, but a little bit more random. And they're just easy to blend out for color. So I'm going to do the same thing here. Now the background that we're making, they're just washes. They're a little bit more abstract. I know that that it's really, what's the word? People want to say abstract when something is stylized. Abstract actually means it's non-representational. So when I'm just doing washes, like color washes that bleed into each other, and I'm not making any shapes that are recognizable, that's abstract art. When you're starting to do, if you're trying to do a flower, but it's just kind of funky, that's not technically abstract because it's still a representational object. That means stylized. So that's the difference. So we have leaves and flowers in the background, so those are more stylized, but our washes and the washes that we're doing for our background is more abstract because we're not trying to make shapes that are recognizable. We're just doing washes. Does that make sense? I love abstract art. I love it so much. Okay. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to start blending. So I'm going to rinse my brush. And then with the colors, I'm going to start on this left-hand side where I first put in my leaves because that's been drying the longest. I'm going to start pulling color and blending out. Now, if the color is not moving as much as you want it to, and you're just getting like a really, really barely there wash and you want more color, there's nothing wrong with picking up a little bit of paint on your paintbrush and introducing that to the blending out process. So if I grab a little bit of green and then I blend that out too, that is okay. And I have not figured out exactly why in some instances the paint blends out and sometimes it doesn't, because sometimes we get emails where people are like, I'm in Arizona and this paint will not blend out. I do it almost immediately and it won't move. I feel like the humidity would have something to do with how it blends out, but I actually don't know the answer. I've actually been talking to one of our paint manufacturers to be like, would a dry climate affect it? Would a humid climate affect it? So we're trying to figure that out so we can give you like answers to what is going on. But this is where we want it to be messy, we want it to be loose. You can even pick up your paintbrush if you want to leave some spaces kind of lighter. And then here, since this is a very green area, I kind of want to introduce a little bit of yellow just to mix up that color. So kind of in between these leaves, I'm just going to put some yellow. And I've put it in when it's wet, and it's just going to move and blend out and do its own thing, and I'm going to let it. Rita, she's like, I cannot keep up, still on the leaves. Sorry, Rita. This was a fast one. You gotta work it fast, but it's good sometimes to just like not overthink it and just go for it and try and keep up. Can you pause on YouTube while it's live? Heidi's saying no, Keenan's saying yes. Keenan, are you lying to us?
I just paused it.
Oh, great. Okay. I think on Facebook you can't pause it if it's live.
But then just remember, if you pause the video,
Then they're waiting.
then you're waiting, and, well, they're going to come in at a different time. So if you comment
They're
on
gonna miss.
YouTube, we're going to be a little confused.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah.
So it'll just be delayed even more.
So unpause?
Unpause.
Okay, so I kind of spread out my green, and then I got to my purple area, and I'm going to stop and start to blend out my purple. Okay. And what?
Anna says, make sure you have a damp brush.
Yes.
Yeah. Okay, now I'm getting to the leaf on my daisy, and I'm just going to work around it. And even though my stem is just a thin pencil mark, I'm going to just like make it a thin white area. So I'm going to paint around.
Oops, I forgot to draw those petals.
That's okay. You can always put them in later. Now, if I want to, in this pink, I can introduce the yellow, and then we'll blend with my green. My mic is cutting in and out? Maybe I'll just put it on the desk and see if, I'm wondering if I'm like pinching it or something. And another really fun thing that I like to do, like let's say I blend out and it's nice and wet and I just want a little bit more depth of color, is I can take some pure color and just drop it in the wet area. Are those real ooze?
I like it.
I just can't tell.
I'm gonna do it.
And then they're just gonna move and bleed out and like do their own thing, and it's gonna get a little bit funky, but we like that, okay? We like that about this project. We want funky textures, we want weird lines, we want blending, we want all of the weirdness in this project.
Yes.
We enjoy weirdness.
We do. I'm a fan.
I just added a drop of water too, which is
Yeah.
cool.
Smart.
Smart. Smart. Keenan's like, you know what you're doing.
You know about those words.
There's only one continent on the planet that daisies do not grow.
Antarctica.
That is correct.
Is this a trick question?
That's cool. Daisies grow everywhere else. So again, you can see I'm working my way around the leaves and the petals. I did get a little bit of yellow on my petals. Don't stress. I'm not mad about it. It's not a big deal because people don't pay attention that much. Only you notice your mistakes. It's, you know, like not that many people notice. Okay, so I'm gonna move on to like, you can keep going around the bottom and work your way up, or you can start at the top again and work your way across. I'm gonna go back over to the top. And what I'm gonna do here is I'm actually just going to put some water down and then drop in some purpley dots. And then start to blend. And then when I get to my kind of lupin looking flower, that's gonna blend out too. And it's kind of nice to switch up the type of purples that you have going on too. If all of your purples are the same like kind of color, sometimes it's nice to throw a little bit of maybe a pink in there just for color variation, Just makes it visually more interesting. If all the greens and all the purples and all the yellows are the same exact tone, it can be more exciting if you introduce different tones within there, because that's what makes your eye move.
You're using the 6 for this washing, yes?
I am. You could probably do this with a larger brush if you have around 8 or 10 or 12 or 20. You can do that. 20 might be a little bit big. Now you can see here that I do have a pretty hard edge where this purple and green is, but that's okay. I don't want to like just take my brush and do this, or else I'm going to get some funky colors. So I'm just going to leave that. Oh, I never painted this leaf over here.
There's some discussion about how there has been improvement on being able to draw since following.
Oh, good.
And the question was, maybe she's taken the fear away.
Yeah, I think that's what stops a lot of people
Yep.
from trying. I was reading this really interesting book about a guy who worked at Hallmark for like 30 years in the creative office, and he would meet with like corporate people a lot, and he liked to do art, but he noticed that when he would say like draw something that nobody would draw, but if he would say like just pick up a pencil and make marks on a page, that people would start to draw. And it's because when we say words like draw something, people automatically go, I'm not an artist, I can't draw, I can't do that. They don't even try. Where it's just like, no, it's just marks on a paper. That's all it is. And it's just a piece of paper that you can throw away, which I do.
It's funny because
that's okay.
Slogan 413, who we told to communicate with our customer service team,
Yeah.
said, I think it's her explanation also. I can draw a UFO and a bean. It helps take the fear out.
Yeah. Love it.
That was really great. It's interesting too, I've noticed that I've thought about incorporating more sketching and drawing lessons in these lessons, but there's different ways to learn how to draw, and I feel like I was taught more like how to draw from reference. Like that was my training, right? Where you look at a bunch of still lives and you draw those and that kind of thing, which is very, very helpful. But there's also a different way to learn where you like looking at the basic shape and then paying attention to the angles, and then by doing that it's pretty easy to draw like faces or hands or whatever, that kind of thing. There's almost like a formula to that, and I wasn't taught that way. So like for me, it's important that I have like reference photos, because that's how I was taught, is to like paint based off of, or draw based off of reference. And I think it actually might be really helpful if you guys were taught based off of more formulas. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
I think there's value in both, but that's kind of why I've been like, oh, I don't know. Just something to think about, you know? It's interesting. And I'm going to do the same thing with I'm going to put some dots of yellow too. Yellow can be invited to this party, you know what I mean? Yellow is one of my favorite colors. It's just happy. And don't forget to do the blending in between our 3 main flowers as well. We can't just leave all of this space white. We have to go in and fill that out to define our flowers.
Berlinda says, Sarah, I noticed you treat the brush like a pencil. I really love watching your technique. Amy said, I think you should incorporate the sketching and drawing. Anna said, Sarah, you could always create a book about drawing.
These are all great ideas. Holding the paintbrush is interesting. I feel like I don't feel like there's a right or wrong way. I feel like you just kind of do what comes natural to you. And I've never heard of like, you should only hold your brush like that. Like, I've never heard of that before. So if you guys are worried about how you're holding your brush, don't be. You're doing great.
Susan says, new t-shirt. Yellow can be invited to this party.
Deal. So when you get to the middle part of your flowers, since they're surrounded by white flowers that we didn't add any color to, you're basically going to be picking up paint for those areas because there's nothing to like blend out in between. You know what I mean? If I'm being honest, I was kind of nervous to do this project, but I feel like you guys had a lot of fun with it. I didn't know how you would react because it's pretty loose.
Thank you for your honesty.
Was that you?
What?
Did you say
No,
that?
I said that, yeah. I didn't read that, the comment, no. It was
Roxanne said, how do you prepare your paper? It doesn't seem to be warping. So I didn't prepare my paper. Preparing paper in watercolor traditionally means that you do you wash it with water, like just clean water first. I never prepare my paper. I think just using the tape is what's holding it down and not warping as much. And this is a pretty thick tape too. So that's the only thing that I did. I actually never tried preparing this Canson paper. I wonder what that would happen. I wonder if anyone out there, has anyone out there tried to wet their Canson paper and let it dry before they painted? And if so, how did that go? Heidi, have you tried it?
Mm-mm.
I just never thought to try it because I only associated that with like heavier weight papers, like maybe more like Arches or something.
Well, I've heard with cotton paper, you like dip it, like the whole thing in water and then let it dry.
Yeah.
But what do you do when it's not cotton completely?
Right, I think that's why I never did it. Also, I only had one formal watercolor class, which made me really nervous to teach also. Because I'm like, ooh.
Well, I think you're doing okay.
Thank you, thanks. So basically, I just don't know all the answers because I didn't go to a lot of watercolor classes. I studied more oil.
Laurel said, yes, I wet my paper before. I thought it didn't make such a difference.
Oh, it didn't make a huge difference? Good to know.
Would negative painting help for painting a mostly white dog?
Yeah, so when you paint a mostly white dog, essentially what you're doing is you're painting the shadows that are in the dog. So a white dog, traditionally, you're gonna have a color around the mouth, you're gonna have shadows around the eyes, and then the neck and the ear creases. Like everything else is white. Painting white dogs is one of my favorite things to do because it's like a third of the amount of work because the paper's already white. Like the hard part is done. You just gotta put in the shadows.
Sounds good to me.
That's what I'm all about, less work, pretty much.
Basically the goal of everything.
Basically the goal is not to try very hard. That's
Wait, that's not right.
wait a second, what am I teaching here?
I noticed that I was like, I'll add the color, but it's not super dark or anything. So now I'm like,
Going in
but yeah.
and that's okay. I know that sometimes it's scary to be so strong with color and you're a little bit timid sometimes, but the great thing with watercolor is you can always do layers. So even if your first round is really, really light, the washes are light and you don't have a lot of strong dark values in there, you can always go back in and add them in. Jessica said, I'd love to see some of your oil paintings. Do you still paint in oils? I haven't painted in oils in a long time, actually. I did it for school, but I couldn't do it at home because I have young children, and oils, you have to have paint thinner and you have to have a bunch of chemicals around. I mean, not like a bunch of chemicals, but it's a little bit more chemical-y than watercolor, which is why I started doing watercolor. So I probably haven't used oils in like 4 years, but I would like to get back to it again once I have studio space. Because they're fun. Have you ever tried oils?
Mm-mm.
Really?
I want to.
You would love it. We'll do it.
Yes.
We'll do a oil box one day. Okay, So I got my background. This is where I'm kind of looking at it. We're going to now do the white flowers, and we'll come back to our background when we put in our green leaves. So even if you don't feel good about your background right this second and you still want to mess with it more, give it space to breathe. Sometimes you need to take a step back and work on another area before you can make a decision about what you're working on. So we're going to move to our flowers. And the first thing that I'm going to do is I'm going to put in my yellow centers. So I'm going to grab some yellow with my round 6. If your flowers are small, you can use your round 2. I'm going to put yellow in there, and then what I did is I mixed a little bit of yellow with magenta to get kind of an orange. And I did a little bit of orange just kind of at the base of the yellow to give it a little bit of depth. And also to kind of differentiate from the yellow that's in the background.
All along the base, not just like one side.
I did it along the base and kind of on the right-hand side a little bit.
Okay.
But again, we just want to introduce a little bit of a darker value to give a hint of dimension. And if you want to create a stronger shadow, kind of like what I did on the flower all the way to the right on the reference photo, is you can grab a little bit of blue in with that orange mixture. It's going to create kind of like a brownish color. And I know that seems really scary to like introduce darker values to like centers of flowers, but little hints of that really help your painting. It just creates more of a color depth and just depth in general. So don't be too afraid. Just try it. Because literally, remember, the worst thing that can happen is you throw this piece of paper in the trash and you just make another one. That's the worst thing. So I'm always a proponent of just try it. If you have an idea, go for it and just see what happens. Okay, so we put in our yellow centers. Now what I'm gonna do is I'm gonna grab a little bit of blue. And this is another reason why I love these palette trays, is if I wanna make a light value, all I have to do is just barely grab a little bit, bring it to the center, and now I'm pulling from this instead of this, which is it's much easier to get a light value when you're pulling from something like this. You know what I'm saying? So now that I have this kind of bluish color, I'm just going to put in a little shadow where these petals come out from the center. I'm not going to do the entire petal again, just kind of where they're coming out. And then on these angled ones, they're going to be on the back flowers and the sides. The back petals, I'm sorry. Now, one thing I'm kind of noticing on mine as I'm putting these in is I didn't do a super good job with my wash going in and kind of painting the space between my petals on these two flowers. I kind of left it that same round shape, but it's not a huge deal because I can always go back in and add that in. So I'm kind of noticing that I just left it kind of more of an oval without defining the different shapes of petals. So I can just do that just really quickly, put those in. And then just gives it a little bit more shape. Yeah, that feels better. Okay. That looks good. Now we're gonna move on to step 4, which is our green leaves. So I'm gonna go back in and reshape the leaves that we originally put in while also painting the green leaves that are on my main daisies. So we need some more green. Grab some green. I'm gonna grab a little bit of blue, add some water to this party, and just kind of, I like to do both where I fill in the leaf, and also there are some that maybe I just outline. So play with it, mix it up. I just kind of want to redefine some of these shapes that we lost while blending out. And then I'm going to go in and also put in the stems and leaves on my daisies. If it's easier for you to use your round 2 to do stems, if you're having a hard time getting a thinner line, you can absolutely just grab a round 2 for these thinner lines. And even if you have a round 2 and you're still having problems getting thin lines, just know it just takes practice. Trying to control the brush with light pressure is hard. There are such thing as liner brushes, which could be helpful for you because those are just super long, very thin brushes. They're great for like whiskers or like I think when we did our sunset power lines, a liner brush probably would have worked really well for those power lines because you can just get nice long thin lines. So somebody asked why I'm painting some leaves first and some I'm saving. So the reason why I painted some first, okay, the reason why I didn't do the daisy leaves is because I wanted to keep the leaves sharp. Because the other leaves I painted first and blended out, they're not as sharp. Even if I go back in and redefine them, they're not gonna have that same crisp feel as if we were just to paint them and not blend them out. So that's why I wanted to keep the ones that were our main subject sharp, and the ones around it, it's okay if they have a loose feel to them. However, it is your painting. If you like one look over the other, you can absolutely choose which one you like and do that one for your painting. Now it's during this time that if you wanted to go back and revisit your background a little bit more, this is a great time to do it because we're already working on it. We're already there. I think what I'm starting to notice now that I put my darker values in for my leaves is your eye is now going to be drawn to the darker areas of your painting, the darker values. And then you're going to start to notice the areas that don't have those like strong pops of color or of value. And so we can always put those in though. So like, for example, one area that I think is really drawing me to that's almost distracting is my lower right-hand corner. And I think specifically this area here. I do have a little bit of dark purple value, but it's not enough to make up for all of this space around it. That's just kind of more of a neutral, even value. So what I can do is I can grab some dark purple, and I do have a green wash here, but it's very, very light. So if I were to mix on top of it, it probably wouldn't make a huge difference. And I'm just gonna go back in and do some of these strong kind of purplish, darker values. and then blend those out just a little bit. I'm just trying to introduce different values to this area because it was just a little too even. I'm gonna grab some yellow too. And now that I put those there and that hint of yellow there, that area feels better to me, where I'm like, okay, there's a lot of different stuff going on there. That feels good. Okay, where else? What else is kind of bothering me? Well, I think maybe this area right here, right above my left daisy, is a little bit bare. So what can I do there? So this is just problem solving, and this is why it's really important for you guys to be able to just step back from your painting for a minute, because the problems I'm trying to solve on my painting might not be the same problems you have, and they're most likely not, because we did this all freehand, so all of our paintings look a little bit different from each other. So something that I can do here, it's a pretty strong yellow and green area. I don't think I can get away with putting purple on here. I might be able to get away with putting a little bit of pink though around the yellow area. So if I grab a little bit of pink and just do kind of, if I stay within that yellow and then just blend out. That introduced a different color and a darker value. And that feels pretty good. Or maybe you want to do smaller leaves. These are all really large, fairly similar sized leaves. If you want to go in and be like, what if I just did like a tiny little leaf branch coming out here? Using different size stems and leaves is a great way to fill the space if you don't have enough room to do like a full size one, but you still want to put something there. I'll put one right here. Sorry. Okay, now one thing that I noticed, I love this like pink color that I put over here, and I mix it and I got a little bit of orange, which is great. But now I'm thinking I have one space on my painting that has orange, and that's it. So I would like to introduce a little bit of orange somewhere else so it makes sense, so it's not just like a distracting color. And this is where you can kind of fall down the rabbit hole of just like, well, I did this, so I got to do this, you know. So I'm going to put a little bit of orange over here in the top right. And I'll do some in this bottom here where there's a lot of yellow anyway. And then all of a sudden that color doesn't stick out as much because I have it here and I have it here. So then it's like, okay, it belongs here. We're okay. I'm going to go in and redefine kind of my loop in. Leslie says she's struggling, and that is totally okay. I just want you to know, some of these paintings, I want to make it clear that it's just like, there are going to be some things that are easier for you to do than others. For some people, they can do outline paintings and they feel much comfortable doing those and they feel good. And when there's no outline, it's harder. Loose painting, it might be really difficult for you to just let go and blend and get messy. That's a hard thing to do. So I just want you to know that just because you don't feel successful on this one, that doesn't mean that you can't paint, and that doesn't mean that there's not a project out there for you. You just have to figure out what your groove is. It's always been a little bit easier for me to be loose because I kind of have a nonchalant attitude anyway. That might not be easy for everybody. So it's okay. It's okay. Okay, and then the very last thing, we're moving on. We kind of made our way into step 5 a little bit with our finishing details. That essentially, take a step back from your painting, see what areas are sticking out to you, what can you do to help it. Area that's popping out to me is this left-hand corner a little bit. There's not a lot going on. What I'm going to do actually is I'm just going to do yellow dots there. So I'm just going to grab some yellow, and I'm just going to introduce some strong yellow to this area. Yep, that feels better. Okay. Whoa, this one I went crazy on. It's lots of color. That's fun though.
I like it.
Heidi, that looks great. I love this flower right here. It's so pretty. Look how delicate your stem is.
It shook a little, but that's okay.
I love a good delicate stem when it's like so thin. Even on flowers that have really thick stems, like poppies and tulips have thick stems, I can't. I'm just like, no, it's gotta be so thin. It's not accurate. Okay. Okay, Leslie, it's okay if you don't like your painting. She's having a hard time. Honestly, if you don't like it, step away or throw it away and move on. I'm gonna start peeling the tape off of mine. When you peel the tape, I like to do mine slowly and I like to pull away from the painting. That way if it does rip, it won't rip into my painting, it will rip away from my painting. So, just pulling away, and now I have this pretty nice clean edge from where my tape was. Keenan, you ready to do our close-up?
I'm almost nearly always ready.
Another fun thing to use if you have it is bleed-proof white. So that is one of those things where with negative space paintings, we're avoiding the area and painting around it. But if you make any mistakes or if you want to go in and add more flowers or white areas, what if you did like little like baby's breath around here? That would actually be beautiful. You can take some bleed-proof white and just go and fix anything or do little white flowers. It's a really fun thing to use. Okay. Now you got a nice clean border. We're gonna watch Heidi peel off her tape.
Uh-oh. Okay.
Yes.
Not bad so far.
Not bad. Oh, look at that clean edge.
Right when you said that, there was a little. It's
I
fine.
know. A little bit of bleed through.
It's fine.
I think it's just when it's a strong color.
Mm-hmm. It doesn't even bother me.
Look at that.
Ooh.
Oh.
That one was good.
Satisfying. This is weirdly satisfying. Nobody else can see what we're doing. They're just hearing us ooh and ah at what they can't see. I'm really sorry about that.
Taking off tape.
Okay, we're gonna hold them up for Keenan to show.
Okay. Ready?
Yep.
Here we have Heidi with her beautiful painting of the daisies. And to her left we have Sarah Cray, also with her beautiful painting of daisies. Beautiful. Wonderful job, ladies.
Okay. That was fun. Oh yeah, look at that. That was great. This is so beautiful down here. Look at that. This is why I love
Do you want them to see that?
abstract. Can they see that?
Yeah,
The
they
overhead?
can now. Yeah.
Like, what if you were just to frame this?
Yeah,
I would
might.
I would hang that up in my house all day long. I just think color transitions and textures are gorgeous. Look at that right there. Okay, you guys, good job. This was a difficult painting. It's a scary painting because a lot of it is just being like, whatever, I'm gonna let things get messy. So if you painted this with us, thank you so much for doing this. If you don't feel successful, don't give up. Maybe this isn't the project for you, or maybe you should try something else for a bit, or maybe you just take a break for the night and come to it the next day. Don't feel like just because you don't feel successful at the end of every painting that you are not made for this, because that's not true. You guys don't see all the paintings that I throw away. You don't see all my sketches before. You don't see that part, but they're real and they're part of everybody's process, and that is good. So If you painted this with us, share it. We want to see how you approach the same project. Me and Heidi did the same painting, and they're different from each other, but they're so great, and we can learn from each other. I could be like, man, I love how Heidi paid attention to the soft washes and the textures in her background. That's something that I can take into my next painting. So if you're on Instagram, tag us in it, hashtag Let's Make Art, or tag us at Let's Go Make Art. One day those will be the same.
Hopefully.
Hopefully.
If that's your Instagram, no.
If you own Let's Make Art domain on Instagram, please give it to us. We want it. Anyways, Facebook, you can use the same tags. We have a very wonderful watercolor community that's supportive. It's different from our business page. It's simply for sharing the art that you're making with us and what you're creating in your own life using the techniques that you are learning from us. That is Let's Make Art Watercolor. You do have to request to join, but we approve people if your joke is good. Just kidding. We let everybody in. So that's called Let's Make Art Watercolor. Tomorrow we're releasing our seahorse tutorial. So that's pretty exciting. Yay. And our Let's Make Art Matter for August, we'll release that a week from tomorrow. So that will be the last tutorial we release in August before we start September. So if you've already done it and painted it, great. If you don't know what to paint yet, we're going to paint a sunrise. You'll see that, but that will be released then. And that's it.
That's it.
You guys are great. Thank you. Heidi Keenan, you did awesome. You guys are really great. Bye.